So, I thought it'd just be easier. So, benefits, yeah? I don't know if that's spelled correct. Retatrutide. Let me just double check. I've not spelled it too many times. Retatrutide, sorry. Retatrutide. All right, let's go into this. The benefits here is obviously going to be fat loss and suppressed hunger. Yeah. So obviously leads to making dieting that touch bit easier. Every pro has a con in life, yeah. The cons, I'm going to actually call this con, but I'm going to say, yeah, let's say cons, yeah. Sweet. So fat loss and suppressed hunger. Naturally, that's going to obviously help anyone in a dieting phase. Again, if hunger is suppressed, you're not going to be thinking about food. The negatives, food emotion switches off. Equals social meals with partners / people become a bit less interesting as the hunger signals are not signaling. Yeah, so it can have an impact. I look at things from a psychological perspective. It can have an impact on home life. If your partner's buzzing all week and she's had a great week, she wants to go out for a steak with a starter, I don't really fancy it. Hunger's not signaling. You get there and you're pushing your food around your plate. So the cons is that. The pros are suppressed hunger, make it in dieting that touch easier. Removal of hunger signals. Personally, I believe linked to higher level of focus, marginally cognitively sharper, because the brain is not constantly, I'm hungry, oh, what should I eat? You can just get through things because the body isn't in that sort of mental depleted state. I need to eat to crack on. How many times have we got through 2 hours of work and it's, I need to eat to crack on? It removes that. So it does also help. But on the negative side, the removal of hunger signals equals being Superman. And then crashing. So what I mean by that is no hunger signals, expend as usual on lower food, then all of a sudden we hit a wall of fatigue. And I don't ever push this on clients, but I've got three clients on a roster out of, it's like a 0.03% or whatever, that have said to me they want to use Retatrutide. I'm never going to say no, but I'm never going to push it on anyone. But if you are going to use it, I'm going to advise you and get you to sign a disclaimer. So what I've seen with that is removes the hunger signals. So they go smash cardio, they go and do everything, fuck, they crash because ultimately the body's not had the adequate amount of fuel. So when we look at this, the average caloric intake for like an 85 kilo male is going to be 2,500 calories. A lot of people using this can't eat 2,500 calories. So naturally, they're not on a plan. So if clients work them in, they do use it. There's a Retatrutide plan. But if they're not on a plan, what's going to happen is they're just going to eat less throughout the day. The body's not going to get the caloric intake it requires to function. And eventually you will hit a crash. You won't signal hunger, but you will crash, hit a wall of fatigue, and crash and possibly get irritant. So when we look at that, that's obviously a negative. The pros are, don't really know if this is a pro. For some people it is eating less food. Again, I don't see that as a pro, but I've had some clients say to me, Jace, I don't want to eat 4 meals a day. I don't want to eat 5 meals a day. I don't want to eat 6 meals a day. For some people, that's a pro. For me, it's not. That's a con. But I'm coming at this from the perspective of the masses and as a non-biased person sharing their opinion. So eating less food, for some people that's a dream when they work 9 to 5, when they work lorry drivers, they work big shifts. So positive for users that don't have the demands to eat X amount of times a day. And then the negative is obviously eating less equals lower protein intake typically. Um, a lot of people tend to struggle to hit the protein intake needed for the daily consumption, because again, the appetite's shot to shit, and protein's going to be one of the slowest things that digest in your gut, so it's not going to help. But also a negative on that is a lot of people are not eating. That equals lesser protein, lesser dietary fats, regulate hormones. We're now looking at less veg, less micronutrients. Ooh, so we're looking at that and we're like, ooh. So my advice is, if you are using Retatrutide, you still need a plan. This isn't get rid of your coach. You still need a plan that's going to have an adequate amount of protein, hit your micronutrients, and have, in my opinion, a healthy amount of fats and a bit of carb pre and post workout. The benefit is getting leaner, doing less. Like, this is the biggest selling point, like, of the miracle drug. All right. On the other side of that is negative notion equals less food, exhaustion is driven quicker, so aka fatigue. So the negative of that is can't train at the same volume as we once previously trained. Yeah, as body will crash and run into a shit pit, basically run into a brick wall. So again, for a lot of people, need to reduce the training volume. Yeah. A positive, a pro, another tool to the arsenal, when it comes to fat loss. Obviously, naturally, if you are someone that uses all the peptides and fat burners, obviously, such as L-carnitine, Clen, Yohimbine, natural fat burners, off the shelf. It's another tool to the arsenal. So for a lot of people, it's like, but for a lot of people that take anabolics or compete, it's like, I'm competing anyway, so why wouldn't I use another tool in the arsenal? Would I use it? No, personally. I don't struggle to diet. I like to feel hungry. I like to have an emotion. I like to have emotion towards food. And I like to have a lot of energy because I have a lot of output. Another con, what have we got here, is mental aspect. This is the biggest fucking one for me. Reliant on something. I don't like to be reliant. So what we will see is a trend. Someone will use Retatrutide. So like, if you've got no structure in your life, no willpower, no balance, and you jump on Retatrutide, you lose 12 kilos. Obviously, everything has to be phase on, phase off. You phase off Retatrutide, you put 12 kilos on. What do you do? Get Retatrutide, sweet. Lose, put on. Lose, put on. The mental aspect of losing and putting on and knowing that there's a quick fix to get you back to where you were is the negative. So my advice, if someone is using Retatrutide, is phase through it for, say, for example, 8 to 12 weeks. Phase off it for 12 weeks. Build some healthy habits. Build, a resilience to dieting. But no, you can use that again to take the edge off. But what I'm seeing is, I know lads, I'll look at them, I'm like, fucking hell, mate, you've not changed in 4 years. All of a sudden you've changed. See them a few months later, I'm like, fucking hell, mate, what's going on to you? So people are getting on it and having it as a reliant. And I think that's where the mental aspect, and it will start to affect mental health, because all people do, get ready for holiday, eat, feel shit, use it again. And it's going to become a significant cycle. And that's when the price will go high. So reliant on something and the lack of future willpower will never be built, and the future willpower will never be built. Vicious cycle. best speller, guys. Very dyslexic. Got kicked out of school. Vicious cycle will be apparent, as it will be, and no real habits will be made. Remember, for me, like, I'm not against Retatrutide. Like, it has other significant effects on lipid profiles, which are very beneficial. Blood glucose levels. It has a lot, and obviously it's helping blood pressure as people are getting lighter in scale weight. So I just need to list the pros and cons of Retatrutide because I think you need to make the decision. So I always say, ultimately, the decision is up to the individual. However, not everything that hits the market has to be used. So yeah, that's just my opinion on it. I think not everything that hits the market has to be used. I'm quite a massive health junkie. I used to run copious amounts of anabolics, and now I don't. So I'm always aware of what I'm putting in, what I'm not putting in, and stuff like that. So this is the Retatrutide, not guide, because I'm not telling you how to do it, but just stating some pros and cons.